What are you doing?
I'm burying you.
I'm alive, Anakin. I'm alive!
You're waking the neighbors. Shut up.
Hello there. Hello, Dex.
Obi-Wan.
You old bagger. Hey.
Excuse us looking like a sweaty mess. This one's still in his dressing gown. It's June.
I've acclimatised to the desert planet Tatooine, I think you'll find.
Today.
Yeah, it's bloody hot.
Yeah. I mean, after what I'm hoping was quite a humorous intro for you.
Bloody funny film, innit?
I mean, it was funny for us. It took longer than this whole video is going to take, but we're in a lot of pain.
Yeah, we did it all for you.
We're in a lot of pain, like a certain man, Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is the series we're just going to have a bit of a talk about if you didn't guess, because the last time you saw us two was our little sort of preview expectation of the series based on the first 2 episodes.
Indeed.
They released. And here we are, only a few weeks later, really.
It's literally like 2 or 3 weeks, really, isn't it? Which is ridiculous.
Which brings me back to my point about that, when they release like 2 episodes.
Yeah.
I just think as well, even from a money-making perspective, they can just, why not milk it for longer? Like,
yeah, I mean, I get it, like we said before, I think. It felt, doing the 2 episodes was great for them first 2 episodes, because it just felt like one big...
It's one of the first things like that I agreed with in that respect, because, and even from just a really boring standpoint of a lot of people who are just not into it are going to be bored after that first episode.
Yeah, but then literally having the rest of it, with it being such a big event, like them releasing this series, we had literally, after that we had the 3rd episode less than a week. It was literally like 3 days later.
Yeah.
Because they moved to the whole Wednesday schedule thing. So then, yeah, we've had, literally 3 weeks later and we've had the whole series.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, shit, it's done. Okay, then.
Yeah. But,
I want more.
Yeah, and I think with that sort of movement, it's like, I think that points to it like they could have easily done more, but we'll probably get into useless speculation like that at some point. But I mean, as far as general statements go, I mean, that kind of points to me, it's like that 2nd episode, but particularly through the progression of that story, you did get the Detective Obi-Wan from episode 2. You got these couple of different versions, and they were quite blatant about the mirroring and all this of the saga, basically. But for me, it was just one of the takeaways is you are getting those standpoints of this character encapsulated in a small piece of work, basically, which, yes, admittedly they could do a lot more with, or they could have held back on. But as its own separate thing, it's placed well, as far as I can.
Well, yeah. Just going with the mirroring
I know
thing.
you're going, yeah.
Oh, I think it's just that the nerd in me, if you couldn't tell, likes that, because they've done it in pretty much all of the trilogies anyway, haven't they?
Yeah, I think this is one of the best examples of it, though.
With this feeling more cinematic anyway.
Yeah.
And a lot more connected to the films than, say, like, obviously Mandalorian, which, as we've said before, is like its own sort of thing. It didn't feel like forced, like, oh look, we're just doing this for the sake of it. It did just make it feel a lot more at home with the original trilogy and bridging the prequels and the original trilogy by having, like, at least that one little standpoint in each episode to mirror Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones,
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith, blah blah blah.
And you can say that about like the entire character. It's like him being that central figure, and you get people just like, oh, who's the main character of this, that, and the other and stuff. But you got like a character like Obi-Wan, and like the story between him and Anakin Vader. Even just say the prequel trilogy, he goes up against Maul as the just the violence. He's like a Sith assassin. You got Dooku, who is the swordsman basically, and again the actual like apprentice, if you like, but also the master in that sense. And then you got Grievous in the third film as just like the cyborg, and then it's just like Vader, and how they've that whole mirroring of what all the blatant foreshadowing. Just this is look at what's going on.
Yeah.
Look at all these people you are literally fighting.
Well, that was the whole point in the first place, wasn't it? That's why they were each a reflection of what Vader would become.
So I think the fact that it was quite blatant in this, it was just like, this isn't for anyone that's not bothered or like is skeptical of how the stories might have gone. This is for fans of Obi-Wan basically, and particularly prequel Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we can already tell, but you've got a really good opinion of this. So like, I sort of just want to hear you say a bit more about
my bias on everything.
The good in this series.
Yeah, I'm always biased with anything Star Wars, like because it's Star Wars. If I'm getting new Star Wars, I'm probably gonna love something about it.
Yeah.
All right, I shot myself in the foot with that with the sequels, and I'll fully admit that now. So I'll go into everything skeptical because of them. But it's Obi-Wan. You can't not love him. Yeah, just as an overall thing, I thoroughly enjoyed the whole lot of it. It was pretty much what I was expecting, I think.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't anything too crazy, but there was enough there to genuinely keep that excitement going throughout the whole series, where, especially by that last episode, with all that going, I was literally sat here just like absolutely beaming watching it, because there was a lot of it which was pure just fan service, just put in there for the sake of it, certain parts.
Well, yeah, a lot.
But I wouldn't say that that wasn't like the main focus. It was, for me, actually seeing these characters and what they're doing. Well, again, sort of bridging that gap between the prequels and the original trilogy to see sort of why Obi-Wan is the way he is, or Vader in particular, actually getting to see him sort of at peak Vaderness.
Yeah. Because everyone obviously got the tease from Rogue One. Yeah. Which is obviously just a prequel to, or not even a prequel, a prologue to A New Hope. Yeah. But we actually get that leading up to that, of course, this time. And again, Vader's just my favourite character in all of fiction anyway. So to actually see him, and actually see him doing Vader things. Yeah. And actually, I mean, I'm just going to go off about Vader now because I can't not. Well, as much as the series was called Obi-Wan Kenobi, it was basically like... It's both of them really, isn't it? It was just meant to be that. It's like that was the whole point of the show. Actually seeing how brutal he is, and them not sort of shying away from that. Yeah, to be fair, like I thought, like as much as I was sat there going like in my sort of like, and I go against it now, but I was sat there just being like, oh yeah, like more of this then. But then I'm like, but I was surprised they gave as much as they gave. Yeah. At that point. Yeah. I mean, there's. Are we past? Can we get into the spoilery bits? Yeah, I was just saying you're just going to say a lot about the good stuff in it, like, so just probably get on to the good points. Probably the best scene for me is in episode 3, where
Vader's landed on the planet that Obi-Wan's hiding out at, and he's sort of peering through the little window, slits in the window, and Vader's just like storming down this street, and he's when he's just picking people up, choking them, snapping necks, or just twisting his hand, and it's like generally that oh shit moment, like you know these characters, like you know Obi-Wan's going to get out of it in the end because he's in episode 4 obviously,
of course.
But actually seeing that and knowing that these characters are going to get out fine in the end, but them still being able to make it tense where it feels like, oh god, there's stakes here. How are they going to get out of this one? Like, how are they dealing with this? And to have that feeling watching it, it's just like that was just top class for me. Quality. Yeah, that was one of the best things I've seen on TV in ages.
I think most people watching it, if they've not got some like extremely bad reaction to it, that's got to be personal, really. Like you can't have like that much of an extremely bad reaction to this, unless it's some personal thing that only relates to you. Whatever you feel about it in general, episode 3 is probably like the standpoint for a lot of people. That's where, because as much as what might have happened in some of the later ones, especially the last episode, by that point you'll have made your mind up whether you're kind of sold on it or not, or at least how excited you are about it all, and how engaged you are in what story they're trying to tell. Whereas episode 3, you'd already had to deal with the start of the story, so you might not be sold at that point. But to still engage you to that level, like that's a standout for me, that episode.
But I mean that fight at the end as well, and actually seeing the dynamic between the two when they finally do meet.
Yeah, and it was like
whoa, okay.
And it felt the most kind of natural, because I think everyone was sort of like, whether they're excited about it, you're sceptical about this whole, they're meeting, what's this gonna, like, you'd either want them to meet and it be valuable rather than something throwaway. But something throwaway kind of seems a bit more natural. And it's not that that's what they gave. But the fact they started on that rough level where it's not this manicured sort of scene set that they're both ready for. It's all quite surprising. As much as you know it's coming, it's surprising for them because they're not ready. Both of them aren't ready. Vader walks in like he's ready to do anything, but none of them are clearly ready for what's actually at stake, which comes out obviously later in their future meetings.
Indeed. Which I thoroughly enjoyed as well, I've got to say.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are probably going to be like, like nothing much, but again, it was nothing more than what I was expecting to get. But I don't know, maybe it's just the little nerdiness of me where I'm like, oh, look at them, they're fighting and it's pretty crazy. Yeah.
I mean, that's better for stuff like this, because I think everything's always built on this idea of expectations and what we've got. And that's why I actually liked the first episode, because they were bold enough to not be bold, to not be flashy and stupid. They were just, right, we're going to actually just set this scene. Doesn't matter what you think about it. We're not going to have a lightsaber fight. We're not going to just this or that. That sort of coincides again with what I think is one of the best parts of this show, which I definitely didn't expect, and that's the centre point really of Leia. And I know they'll have done it for many different reasons. The sort of one story reason being that Luke had the original trilogy to be the main character, so with Leia being, for all anyone's guesses, she had every other chance to be exactly what Luke was. So to have her be like an integral part to a story was just important in that regard. But as I said in the video after we've watched just 2 episodes, that got you well into that story. But at that point, I didn't know whether it was just going to get wrapped up within an episode sort of thing, because they got away. And
leaves you with that feeling of like, okay,
it could go either way. Yeah, it could be like there could be then the overarching story with the fact that Raver used Anakin's name and revealed that. You sort of think, is it going to lead more that direction, and he's just going to go off on that tangent, or is this Leia story going to go for the whole thing? And as much as it did, which at first I would have been hesitant on, it made the most sense to me in what they were trying to tell, and to also sort of just have these characters be themselves with each other, sort of thing. So you've got it makes it more sense with someone like Leia being presented in the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, really, but as someone who's fairly boots on the ground, even though they've seen all the mad stuff that the war and the Jedi and everything has caused. I should say the Force more than anything. It's just like, but the fact that starting message, which clearly none of this was planned at the time, but help me over when you're my only hope. One, she uses his actual name, which again probably wasn't thought of, but the fact he's actually going by Ben, old Ben, all that makes you think about it. But having that sort of view of hindsight, looking at it now, you've got someone who's quite practical. She's got a very sort of like, she's in that leadership role, she gets stuff done, but she's still making this sort of like poetic sort of yearning message to some almost mythical figure. So it makes you think, when you see her as a child in this show, you think, oh, is it going to be this? Is it going to be that she's grew up with this idea of this? He is just this myth. So that when maybe Bale introduces this idea of, right, shit hits the fan, you call Obi-Wan. So she's almost got this sort of like bedtime story sort of picture in her head of what this hero is going to be, and you'd almost get that in those early episodes, and then getting to know each other and stuff. But it made more sense that she actually had a physical experience of this person, and it was a positive experience, and he was that role model. He was this sort of like powerful sort of force in her life.
Yeah.
For her to reach out so sort of bluntly like that, even though it was just a daft thing that was made to sound simple and really nice. This just made it more realistic, because I think people are yearning for that in a lot of things, even stupid stuff like Star Wars and Marvel and all the stuff that's basically all the stuff that's made for kids or big kids. Basically, it's just like they'll moan about it when they get it, but they want that bit of realism. And they do moan when they get realism.
Oh, yeah.
Like, everyone does. It's annoying.
Speaking of Leia, again, we said it before, she's one of the greatest actors in it.
Yeah.
She's brilliant. The way she sort of bridges the whole Padme Leia thing and has the mannerisms of both of them.
Yeah.
It's spot on.
And I think the beauty of that is the fact that she's out. She'll be out of the loop of it. I think some of the other older actors that have been in some of the past films have had that perception of what Star Wars is and all of this.
Yeah.
She can go into it with that blank slate sort of feeling. So yeah, that she's one of the standouts. But you saying that she's one of the better actors, and it's like, yeah, some of the acting does fall. It's not as strong as it could be, but in the sense where how are they presenting these characters, and that's what I'm thinking. It might be less to do with the actors. It's more to do with, are these characters being these characters? Are they fulfilling what these characters are? and that's what.
Yeah,
Sort of
no, I wouldn't say it's anything on the actors because the cast is damn fine. Yeah, I just think it's the characters themselves.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going into that sort of thing, just Inquisitors in general, I don't like that much as characters, even from watching like Rebels and stuff like that. To be honest, I've always just found them a bit of a joke.
Yeah.
They always seem, I don't know, they are just a bit of a mockery of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, I remember watching Rebels and they're using like the bloody spinny lightsabers as like helicopters.
I was going to get to this.
I've ever seen. Like, I mean, just their lightsaber design in general. Let's just go off on that for a sec. Ridiculous. It's just unusable. Yeah. Why would you agree to use that as your weapon? So just have a single blade for a start. Probably get a lot more done.
Yeah.
The spinny bit is just laughable. Yeah, they just look stupid.
Yeah, and I think they sort of, and again, we are tipping sort of back and forth between the good and bad, but that's what this series does really.
Yeah.
In my eyes, but I think again with the Inquisitors, it takes away again this whole realism thing. It takes away, and almost if you're going to be extreme, makes a mockery of what the whole space Nazis thing that Star Wars was trying to do does. Because I know that representation of how that comes across, they are trying to show those different angles of, oh look, how is this regime playing out across the galaxy.
Well, I thought that was great how they did it. The I think it is episode 3 actually, where the mole guy picks them up in the trailer, and the actual just the fear across that of them sort of him coming across as such a nice guy to give him a lift in the trailer, and then as soon as he gets on, that fear in Obi-Wan's face when he sees the Imperial flag, and it's just like, well, to me it just come across as like how you see like in World War II dramas and stuff, and like and
they're obviously
give that same sort of
going along with that.
That's obviously what they're trying to convey anyway. But they did it really well in that sense, and that whole idea of just like you can't trust anyone. Anyone can sort of turn on you at any point. Like that was it was pretty heavy. I don't know. Well, some of it's daft to Star Wars, but they do a great job of putting across that sort of fear of these regimes.
Yeah, because as much as they're referencing real world stuff with all of this, the big takeaway, the big sort of additions you can use with stuff like that is knowing where to be really subtle, but then knowing when to be really overt and stuff. So you've got all the imagery, you've got the flags, you've got the image basically, but then you've got the subtlety of the fact that again this driver is, we could say, and anyone that say the character in Obi-Wan's perspective can be like, this is like, okay, he seems good, and then just because he turns, we're sort of going between that. Oh, he's turned, but it's like if he's not a bad guy, he's basically living under something that he believes is like it works for him, because he literally gets to live his life just doing his little route. That's literally his life. So it works for him, and he's just like that political system they're in is just interwoven in everything.
Yeah, I was just going to say how it bleeds into everything.
Thoughts,
that puts across the scary thing to me.
And that comes in again with that episode. We're just going to praise episode 3 by the sound of it. Part 3, because they weren't calling them episodes because it was getting confusing, obviously. Because I was just thinking of that whole mess that I kept saying last time. But that episode had a lot of the basically just employed moments.
Yeah.
So they go into that planet to meet a contact. You first see a cloaked hood, and for a split second, I don't know about anyone else, but you sort of think, it's a Jedi or something. Like, how is this like? He's literally just saw a fake Jedi, which I really liked in the second one, which I already mentioned. But it's like, oh, they're going to just do like another cameo, is it this, that and the other? But then instantly that melted away. It's just like, oh, they're going for this, and it's the whole like, how is his mental state working? And as much as a lot of the time you could just brush that in many different ways, you could say he had a vision of Anakin, and it was a force connection, all this sort of stuff. But it's like, no, just like that's just something he saw. Whatever the answer is, it's like that's just something he saw. But then you've got again all this implied stuff with that ride with the mole guy. The fact how it's not clean cut. You've just got that grey area. It's like he's not. It's like you're not going to have this star-nosed mole guy as a villain. It's just he's literally, to him, he's basically just going to the police for something that he's pretty sure is a bit off. And then in our eyes, we're so annoyed because we know it's wrong, we know it's messed up.
Yeah.
But it's like at the same time, you're like, yeah, of course he doesn't know it's messed up.
It's just law-abiding.
And that's why what made the confrontation so great then when Obi-Wan knew he had to act.
Yeah.
Following on for them meeting that character where he's just had to fight his way out and they've had to risk everything to then get him back. Followed again with back in a hideout and you've got the Lift the robot.
Dead.
Oh man. Like that was one of my
so cool.
favourite little moments where it was just the implication of what he could do. It was the fact where as soon as she said it you knew it was like set up. Which again, it's like those odd little bits of writing where it's like, okay, this is good, I like this. It's like our actions speak louder than words because he didn't say anything. And then the troopers walk in, the whole time he's just holding that hammer behind him.
That's another thing. The tense.
Yeah.
Like building that tension.
I would have loved to have seen that, but it's the same. Is that Vader corridor scene? Corridor scene, but you know,
the street.
It's a street, but it's in our heads. It's a corridor scene, and then some of the later things. It's you think a lot is happening, but it's all just like holding you at that point. It's not letting you go into it, because yeah, of course I'd love to see that robot just like smash up some stormtroopers, but it would have just been one of those things where it felt good and then it's just gone, like that. Just has that staying power because it's not finished. Like it's never. You've always just held on that moment, and it just to me that summed up one of those best little moments. And you've got a lot of that in the series, but a lot of
something I did like just in general little bits. They don't play up to it too much. It's almost like a little tease for the whole way for it to keep you wanting that bit more.
Yeah,
which I always think is a good thing.
But at the same time, and this tips back into Inquisitors and the negativity, but like you're going to pick out on the Inquisitors more than anything probably with this. It's just this whole the reluctance of pretty much anything, but in this series, in Star Wars in general, in a lot of different properties, it's this. They present a lot of this black and white, and I know Star Wars is generally, and it's always trying to keep to this whole like good and evil thing. It's like we saw with something like Boba Fett. The appeal of a lot of characters that people seem to get behind is the ones where, oh, is this the ones that seem a bit more human, the ones that are like sit in this morally grey area. Because it's like, because that is universally accepted, because you can have people with completely real people with different like political views, everything like this, but then they can relate to a certain character because they're so hard to pin down. So they can one person can relate to them for this one reason, another for another, and examples like the ones we've just given about these subtle moments. Leia even as this presentation of a character, it's this, why are we just having to look at, oh, this is a good character, this is evil, unless you're one of these main characters where it's just like they've just got this overarching story that needs to be told. And that's what I wanted to see more of, because say like with the Inquisitors, it was just very much they're just there, they're just bad. And if you're going to do
nothing
that,
about them.
accept that, use them as these just horrible tools of just like genuinely in the story, but then also as a writing tool, as just these are just going to be horrible. These are just going to ruin everything. Whereas, say something like Raver, it was too much of this, oh, you can't be bad. We're presenting you as the relatable one, so you've got to be good in the end. As much as that last episode was teetering, it was showing like, oh, yeah, she's maybe going off on one direction, but so she's somewhere between that. By the end, you can just see it that, oh no, you are definitely trying to present a good character. She might be in future adaptations, because it's clearly, to me, that the bad part of the story, the good part of the story is the fact that she was mainly there to introduce her as a character that can be used, and that's why she didn't die as much, going against our predictions. Honestly, yeah, that last episode, we both said afterwards, like, I was going to say it as we were watching it, I thought it was going to be Obi-Wan literally forgiving her, and either Beru was just going to like one-shot her for just messing with the kid anyway, because Beru had been presented as a bit more just like, as much as Beru and Owen were ready to protect everything, she was clearly presented as the one who's just like,
we're fucking doing this.
Run into it, because like Owen was ready maybe, but it's like, you seal that with his interactions with Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
It had to be, like, no one was going to get to them through him, but he also wasn't going to be the one to necessarily like start anything, because he didn't want the attention, sort of thing.
No.
So yeah, I thought either that was going to happen, but it's all going to be to do with Obi-Wan's like, not forgiveness of her, but it's presenting his forgiveness of her for her sake, but really it's his like realisation of, oh okay, everything's fine, I'm fine, it's okay, and coming back to again my predictions from the last video of this story was going to be him basically saying, okay, it's fine that I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's fine that I've done all these things basically, and I thought, yeah, she was either going to get shot, or she was just going to not be able to cope with what she'd done, or know that the story's over and her part in the story's over, and it's all quite actually like realising itself a bit too much, and she just like runs herself through with a lightsaber. I
mean, to me, it just, like the other Inquisitors, just felt very nothing-y. Like, I didn't give a shit about her. Nothing against, like, I mean, she got better through the series, her character.
It was the second most predictable thing that they went with.
Yeah.
With the like the most predictable one was that she was flat out faking it.
Yeah.
And she basically, because you had that introduction scene at the start of the series, so this was literally framing the series, which was great in that perspective, but also great for her character potentially. And it felt like the most predictable version was, okay, she's gone along with this, she's lived the life enough so that she's done some horrible things, and she's obviously it has, because she's an Inquisitor and this is how they're presented. But she's just waiting for a moment, she's waiting for an out, she's waiting for this, whatever. It's like, and I'm glad it wasn't that, because that would have been too simple. Like I said, it's the most predictable, but the fact how it was the closest version to that, where if she's generally doing what she's doing, but it's all basically because of the anger and the hate towards that was inflicted on her, and then she carried forth into what she was doing. So I think that's why I want to see a villain be a villain, where it's like, where as soon as it's an important character, or one they've established, right, you're an important character, there's either the whole redemption thing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I saw something about this the other day. I can't remember what it's about.
But it's like, even with Kylo in the other.
Yeah,
movies,
they
like-
always every film now does seem to have to redeem everyone. It's like
Yeah.
there are just some flat out evil bad people
Yeah, but
that
even
aren't going to change. Like it would be a nice change to just have a total bastard. All
I
the way
mean,
through.
this sort of comes into one of my main negative points about, which I can sort of wrap up as Tatooine, which
Go on.
yeah.
That's
And
just-
I'm only doing that because it's like it sort of rounds it off, because it comes in from what we were saying about these morally ambiguous characters, which is something like Boba Fett.
Okay.
So you got Book of Boba Fett, which I've already said, like, I wish it was done differently. As much as I can accept what it was, but look, now we've got the perspective of this Kenobi series. I think when Kenobi was rumoured more than anything years ago, I think everyone thought Tatooine is going to be a western, and then obviously Mandalorian happened. It's like,
That would've been cool.
as much as that was spacefaring and going around the place, they feel like they'd covered that kind of character and the gunslinger and all
It's
this
just
sort
clicked.
of
It's
stuff.
all set on Tatooine. They're just milking Tatooine, aren't they? Is that what you're getting at? Yeah.
Well,
I'll come back.
there's a couple of points, but one of the main things was the fact that when you've got something like that, they kept Book of Boba Fett all about Tatooine, sort of. Whereas the expectation was something like Kenobi was going to be, and I would have preferred. I completely accept what they're doing. This is just purely one of these speculating tangents, which you expect of me, or you do at least.
Yep, known you bloody long enough.
And if it was a Kenobi series and you knew that it started, ended on Tatooine, and never went anywhere, instantly the thoughts out of your head. You don't have to worry thinking, how is he getting back? What's leading him to there? Like, if it was just a contained story where he never left, I don't have a problem with him having left and done all that. I can accept a story
Sorry.
that makes sense for that.
Carry on.
I think with anything like this, we're not dealing with stuff that's that. It's fantasy, so it's like I can accept that things like that's happened, but I would have just preferred. You could have done so much, and you've proved that by trying to do that with, say, Book of Boba Fett. But again, you've got this morally ambiguous character. I know they had this whole spiritual tangent of his life with the Tuscans. But for me, in that respect, you could have done the same. You could have done a similar thing with Obi-Wan, because there's nothing to say that he didn't have some sort of like connection to a lot of this thing, living out in the middle of nowhere. The fact that he just basically scares them off.
Yeah.
And yeah, you could, everyone before, and again, because it wasn't written, it wasn't planned. You could, it's the Force and stuff, like whatever. It's a mind trick, but it's like the only mind tricks you see other than that is literally him just speaking and just sort of like making little sort of like comments to people and stuff, whereas something like that was just obscure and stuff, and he's literally, point being was that Boba Fett was great, like morally grey character, and that's what drew people to people, because you drew people to him because you had nothing to go on. And that's the beauty of anything like that, is because as soon as you start using stuff, you've got too much to work with. And that is the thing with anything Star Wars, particularly Obi-Wan. You've got too much that's set in stone now, where you've got to be doing your best, treading carefully and stuff. And that's why certain things like the fact how they could adapt things that maybe have been told in different stories, be it books, comics, anything like that. They do the best with what they've got because they've already told things. Because as soon as you have like a cartoon a few years back, they think, oh, this might be the only chance we get to do this story. So they do something, but they make such a bold move that they're like, oh, we can't do this now that we get a chance to do live action. But it just sums up that they keep making these shows, doing these things, and they're just like, it's like they're trying something out that works, and then they have to follow it with another thing, and it's like, oh, this could have worked really well for that. So like Book of Boba Fett following Mandalorian, it's like, Mandalorian was like a test to see how Boba Fett would work. It's like, of course Boba Fett would work. But then Mandalorian took off because it was good.
Yeah.
So then it's like, oh, we've got to do Book of Boba Fett. And then it's like, people have got that sort of like, oh, it's Tatooine, going back to that, going back to Star Wars and stuff, because they're post-sequel trilogy again. And they responded well to it with The Mandalorian. So it's like, oh, let's do all that. And then it's like Kenobi, it's like, oh. Like, imagine if Book of Boba Fett, he got just like, it was wrapped up in this whole like crime syndicate stuff. And it's like, yeah, maybe it started with the Tuscans and Tatooine and stuff, but it was just rough as anything, like it was at the start. But it led into that crime syndicate thing, pulled away, came back, it culminated in Tatooine maybe, only for him to then gain, basically symptomatically gain the respect of the city, to which they basically look to him as leader, which he doesn't really believe in, but he's stuck like it now. So then it still leaves him morally grey for the future in the fact that, is he going to be a tyrant? Is he going to be this? Is he going to be that? Whereas it was just, from the start, as much as it was like, I liked the way he took over in that. It's just a case of like, yeah, but all of a sudden he was just like, yeah, I'm good. And they relied on the flashbacks to do it. That's why it should have just been like 3 little short movies. And I'll still stand for this with Book of Boba Fett. You've got what happened after the Sarlacc pit. What happened when he got Slave One back, and in between that and finding his going to Mandalorian, and then the third one can be what we saw on Wayne's back and stuff. Just rely on that.
Yeah.
So,
do you think they do it better in Obi-Wan then, basically?
do I think they do it better? My problem is the fact that, like,
because I'd just say they would.
Like, yeah,
but that's probably just me going off it being a better series.
They're filling the gap, whereas I think they didn't ever need to. And I think my problem with it from Obi-Wan's perspective as a character is you have to have him coming back. And looking at it emotionally as that character, it's like, it's never seen like this, but it's one of the... He leaves Anakin burning on the ground. Not dead. He knows he's not dead. He knows he's probably going to die, but he hasn't got the stomach to kill his best friend and put him out his misery. So innately a selfish decision, because he just can't bring himself to do it. Then goes into exile. Doesn't have anything to do with like anything that's going on. It's not because they think something's going to happen, as much as they've said, like with Yoda, that the boy's going to be trained, all this sort of stuff. We come full circle at the end of this series, and he's had to make the same exact decision.
Yeah.
Yes, the really simple moments between like him and Owen saying, boy's got to be trained, and then by the end of it, it's like, okay, the boy's got to be a boy. But he's still basically saying like, nah, I'm out of this. The life's going to play along as it's going to play along. I'm going to be in this story or I'm not, whatever. Yeah. Which would make better sense, and this is coming back to, again, one of the better scenes, and one of the things we all loved and we can pull a lot of good stuff from. It makes sense if he left Vader in a different way, or if there was just more to work with, and they maybe just didn't try and cram it into a series and just said, like, right, we're going to tell a story with the potential to tell more. And that is the fact that he left Anakin as Vader. He'd started everything convinced, because he realised Anakin was alive, and when he actually faced him, and then we faced him with the bit of his face and actually sort of apologised, all of this. It was great. Like, I was like, he went from Anakin to seeing like, oh no, Anakin's gone. I came here to finish him off. But I literally believe what he's just told me, and he's truly dead, like my friend is truly dead. It doesn't align well. I think they just had to then present it through the whole thing with Raver. It doesn't make me think he's like forgiven him, or he's forgiven himself. It's literally like he's just like, oh no, this is as bad as I thought it was. this is worse than I thought it was. So then to end it the way they did, back as how you basically know it before A New Hope, was just jarring. Like, it comes to... I really want to know the line. Don't have a go at me for not knowing the line, because I've not got a good memory. When Vader meets Luke in episode 6, I was...
Yeah.
On Endor. It's one of the great... I love that scene. He's like talking about the lightsaber, everything. It's like... It says something along the lines, because like Luke's basically gone in that sort of... He's presenting that there's hope for Vader, and there's good in him. And Vader says something along the lines of Obi-Wan thinking the same, or Obi-Wan did think the same. When did Anakin, other than the slight implication that we can pull from him just saying sorry and all of this, when would you have got the assumption that, or even the confirmation that Obi-Wan thought there was hope for Vader? Because he literally leaves that conversation changing from, oh, I'm seeing this as Anakin and I'm crying and I'm saying sorry and it's horrible, and that impact was great when he actually like finally saw it, and that's what broke him, and he hearing him. But then to change to just be like, oh no, I completely accept, like, you're gone, like, my friend is truly dead. And he calls him Darth at the end, which again is just to like, mirror that next time they meet and he calls him Darth. It was just jarring to that, and I just wish like some of that would have really cemented some of this stuff that we've lived with, and these like perceptions of these characters. It would have just cemented it so well. But I think my problem is the fact that it's just like it had to come back to that. And what it's basically amounted to is the fact that this series has been told, and you know it's pretty much all we're going to get, is it's gone from him going in exile because he couldn't finish what had happened because it was horrible, to then going in exile again. Like, I think, again, if they'd have just been confident in what they were, because I think that's my problem, is like, fairly confident in most of the stuff, but stuff like this, it's just like, if they'd have not tried to limit themselves, not basically say we're going to do loads of series, just say, we're going to tell this story, see where it puts us. We literally don't have to tell another one. We could just tell this little story, that could be it, because we've still got episode 3, episode 4, doesn't matter. You can fill in the gaps as long as you want, sort of thing. So if they'd have told this story and he'd have gone up through this, basically just realising at that point about episode 5, whenever he's just like, I've got to face him. Basically, I've got to finish the job because I couldn't do it back then, and I was a coward, and I've created a monster, basically. Like, he's agreeing with everything that's happened. If they'd have gone where he went after Anakin, Vader, and Vader had left him in a state, in a sense where they've separated, and he couldn't and Obi-Wan couldn't actually kill it. It would have made more sense. Like, he's gone to finish the job, and he still doesn't, and he comes back. And I'm rambling now, but you're looking at me like Obi-Wan, and I feel like you've got things to say.
No, I'm just trying to think of it like, because I hadn't really thought of it in that sense. Again, maybe just in my whole, it's Star Wars, yay. And just let it sort of like go over my head. Because it's just sort of got me thinking then. Like, yeah, because you're right, like there is no sort of confirmation of him thinking that there's any good side to him still. The only bit I can think of is when like there's Padme's dying in episode 3. When she says like, no, there's still good there.
That's what I mean. It takes the leaps of going, oh, it's a Force connection thing. It's this, it's that.
But yeah, that's the only thing I can like sort of then put it down to in my head.
And that's like a non-answer. It's always going to be a non-answer.
Yeah.
But
because there's still that bit where I was thinking, maybe that's why he didn't like finish the job off in that last part, because he could see Anakin again, like from under the mask.
Like, that's what I mean. Like that,
That's what I was
the
sort of-
impact of that, and when it changed, great.
Actually hearing a bit of his voice again and stuff.
But if he literally, but again, he wouldn't have had to. That could have been the turning point where he's like, okay, I came here to kill him because he clearly did. But yeah, there's more to this. If he'd have actually went, like, if he, even there and then, he's just like, especially when he leaves him, it could have just been. He actually goes through. Yeah, he says sorry and everything, but that's sorry for all the stuff he's done. It's again this whole like these selfish decisions sort of thing. It's not. It's okay. I forgive you, even though you're a monster that's killed so many people. If you'd have left him on that and refused to fight him, it would have made a lot more sense then. And like Vader not understanding that, to then finally meeting A New Hope, and Obi-Wan's just fell into place with that. But he's also accepted that he's gonna die, and Vader's also just like, come on, finish the job then, and doesn't. So he finishes it. That's what I mean. These little tie-ups, but the fact that he ended it with, like, it was looking like he was going to do this whole forgiveness thing, so that then by the end of the series he forgives himself finally.
Yeah.
Instead it was, no, I accept that everything is bad, everything is gone. Only to then, again, put on that sort of front again at the end. So yeah, I just think missed opportunity with that. But yeah, the heat's clearly got to me because I've rambled far too long. I'd apologise. I don't care. If you listen to this long, you don't care either. So, I mean, is there anything you actually want to add to any of that? Because I've spoke far too long.
You've covered a fair bloody bit. Yeah, no, the only things I didn't really like were the Inquisitors, but I didn't like them in the first place anyway, from Rebels. Obi-Wan himself is brilliant. Leia and the whole connection between them two was brilliant. Bit surprised they killed off Tala, actually. I knew someone was going to have to get killed off in it.
Yeah.
But she seems like, I don't know, had enough potential to maybe start popping up in other things.
Yeah,
with her.
As much as they're trying to do that with a lot of things, like, there's certain ones where that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
like,
she seemed like she had a lot of weight behind her.
Yeah. Whereas all it's going to be is
and
Reva in something. That's
yeah,
all
like I just don't think. Yeah, it's like Reva to me doesn't seem like a strong enough character to do anything else with.
Yeah. What I will say, I'm going to just do like a devil's advocate thing again,
right?
Because we've said about Reva in the first episode, in the last talk. Where am I? Is that first introduction, that flashback? I already said how much I love that.
Yeah.
But it's the only one they ever needed. The rest of them are just for the idiots that can't put two and two together. And I'm not into flashbacks. But the reminder with all of that is the fact that, oh, okay, she was still classed as a youngling then, and she was clearly fairly young when Order 66 happened and they stormed the temple. And you think there's like, they specifically said 10 years later.
It's 10 years, yeah.
She is literally an angry teenager.
Yeah.
And again, that doesn't mean that, but again, with the actor herself, it's just like, the next time you see Reva, it could be years down the line, because she could, the way they present her instantly, she could be like
point, yeah.
mid-30s, whatever.
Yeah.
Anything like easy.
Yeah, and it would be nice for
and that's
to
the
see
obvious
that.
angle they were going for, was this rageful, hateful, traumatised kid, basically.
Yeah, and like through the series, I've tried to like just go along with that.
But it was placed like over.
Yeah,
it was completely.
It just felt like she's just put in there for the sake of it, really, just so we've got always a new character. And with the whole, I know that there was just a massive controversy against everything. Like we said before, she's a brilliant actress. She could do so much with it. But whatever, like, just what they've gave her to work with Reva,
it's just didn't give her so much bad attention.
Yeah,
basically, yeah.
And it's just not. I don't know. It's a shame they've not. To me, they've not set that character up the way they could have done. It had a lot more potential to be really, really cool. When, like we said before, everything that sort of happened with her kind of just became a bit obvious after a couple of episodes. Then, but then, like, to me, I don't know, like Tala, it felt like I was more intrigued by that character. It's like, how did she get to that point more? I know they said about her having that bit of an Imperial background, and then sort of realising, hang on, this ain't for me, this ain't right, and then becoming that sort of agent, not infiltrating them all. That was really cool. I quite like the whole almost espionage side of it, I suppose. Don't know, just felt a bit like it was worth, like, her and that whole team that they'd gathered that were helping the Jedi and everything. Like, yeah, I kind of wanted more of that. It just seems a bit of a shame that they've got rid of her quite quickly. I know they could do like a whole backstory thing, but then I don't know. To me, it just seemed like there was a lot more potential.
Limitations and stuff.
Yeah, like with them doing the Andor series coming out and everything, it felt like she could be cool, like a nice character to sort of throw in with that and stuff. So it's a shame that's sort of off. You mentioned flashbacks. Just being a total sucker for Star Wars, obviously. The Anakin and Obi-Wan flashback, like pre-episode 2.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
That was just cool.
Yeah,
and actually seeing them develop the whole their connection between each other. It sort of built up on the way they were fighting in Revenge of the Sith, because they were on that level where they could almost like predict each other's moves and stuff. And
sorry, sit back. We're gonna get into this.
Okay.
For a moment.
Yeah.
For a moment.
For just watching it casually.
Yeah.
Because I know you're probably going to go on about sword fights and stuff, maybe.
No. I'm
okay,
just,
fair enough.
I'm not going to subject that to everyone.
We could be here for a long time then. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun to see it. And there's bits like that, which I think they were just put in for that sort of reason.
This is what
it was just fun to see, and I enjoyed it.
There was bits of that bits of the series where they were just, it was the rule of cool just done well. It was a case of like, you've got the Vader's voice in the fact with the damaged mask is like we were saying, nitpicky. You want the damaged voice where it just sounded like Anakin's voice and the apparatus together. So yes, if you're being picky, which we would be, I would be completely happy if they'd have just presented like a harrowing, horrible voice that's been damaged and it's barely makes any sense, but you're getting the sense through the apparatus alongside the breathing and the electronic sort of sound to it. Because of the realism of that, I'd have had that all day.
Yeah.
But the effect, the impact of having enough of his normal voice coming through, for the emotional impact of what they were trying to connect with him and Obi-Wan, was enough to just sort of hand wave it and just go, this is fine, because we're looking at the damage, we're hearing the apparatus anyway, so the implication's already there, so you almost do it in your head so they don't need to, especially because you can't fully hear it. So it's one way you can sort of get past. I don't know if it was the same for you, because I know you brought it up first, to be fair, before me.
Yeah. That's just that nerdy part of me that's read up on stuff about Vader for years.
And again, but for people like us, we'd be completely easy to watch that. But whereas the fact how all audiences, it's annoying, but some people, if they can't quite hear the words or something, that's what switches them off against a moment like that, which was so sort of like important stuff. So it's like, I can get certain decisions like that, as much as I don't think creators need to be worried in that regard. I don't think they should be worried in that way. I think they should just make the stuff that actually makes sense and is right and stuff. But yeah, so even that flashback fight scene, great moment and stuff. But again, yes, I'm not into flashbacks, but if you're going to do something like that, because they were doing the mirroring, I get that as a tool and a way of telling that episode story.
Well, it sort of give a bit of depth to
each step of the fight moved with the step of that episode storyline. but again, it's this whole like idiots thing, which again is easy for someone to say, but it's just a case of you could play that whole scene, that whole fight, and pick up on the meaning if you then just had the episode, or you had the fight in a really odd bit for some reason. It wasn't even like Obi-Wan was dreaming or something, which comes back to the flashbacks. His dreams or visions, whatever you... really disliked them, like that first episode. I don't even think I said this on that last time. And they're just basically showing clips of the films. Like, I at least liked it in Book of Boba Fett when there's like a memory of him watching Django coming back. They had to make that because there wasn't that in any of the movies and stuff. Yeah. But the fact that they were just showing like odd bits, and again, people who were just going to try and justify it can just go, oh yeah, but it's like as much as he wasn't there, because there was the one with like Anakin in the Naboo starfighter. I'm sure there was. Like a flashing across. But anyway, either whatever was in that dream is literally the camera's angle of what we get to see as an audience, and I just so hate that when that comes up in a film where that's literally being shown as what's in this character's head and their subconscious. So of course that's not in the subconscious. They're not watching a film. Like we've watched those films, but if you just got like an odd little snippet, it doesn't have to be like, they don't even have to throw that much money into it because it's a dream. They can make it look blurry, for Christ's sake. Like they can literally just do anything. Yeah. Just make it look like it's their experiences, and even if it is a dream and it's abstract and it's not something they've actually experienced, and do something weird. It's just so lazy when things like that happen. So when you've got a good use of that, like this fight training scene, I completely understood why they did it for that episode and stuff. But yeah, I do sort of just think, like, what would that have been if you just got to watch that scene play out, to then have it mirrored in the episode itself.
Well, like it sort of give a bit more meat to why.
But the structure's there, yeah.
Like Anakin feels the way he does about Obi-Wan. It comes back to the whole fact that because Qui-Gon wasn't there to be that father figure for him, Obi-Wan was more like the brother to him. He's almost like, it shows him being that sort of like older brother trying to teach him a lesson. Yeah. Like, no, like this is what you can't do it, sort of thing. Yeah. Almost like that whole teasing sort of thing to an extent. So I don't know. It just built up to me. It built up why their relationship was like it was in the films, and why it was so easy for Anakin to see Obi-Wan in that sense, whereas we always see it from a different angle of like, oh no, he is his mentor and this and that, and he's just trying to look out for him. Yeah. Whereas that to me gave a bit more, in a nice sort of way, showing that dynamic a bit better. And how it comes,
and you got it.
So
there we go. Like, it's literally, it all comes down to how we see Obi-Wan.
Yeah. It just gave better seeing it from Anakin sort of way.
Yeah. And I mean, you're just saying like Qui-Gon, like that literally bookended the series. Some people can see it as just like, oh, it's just cameo, they're thrown in there and stuff. But you've literally rounded that off with Qui-Gon, who was literally like one that is that integral point in this whole storyline between the dynamic between Obi-Wan and Anakin and the saga, basically. And that would probably round up my thoughts in the sense that I am going to see this in a good light. After all the rambling I've done, comes back to that quote that I always think of George Lucas saying, Star Wars is for kids. And the fact is, those kids, which are the prequel kids basically now, because this is a series for the prequel kids, they're all staring down the barrel of 30.
Yes, we are.
So you're going to get that slight bit more grown-up attitude to stuff, but at the end of the day, it is a fantasy story. It's a light-hearted fantasy story with some horrible things in there, but that's what a good fantasy story does and stuff. That's what a good tale about these magical things does. and that's what they've done justice to in this. Really, missed opportunities, but there always is, and
Well, there's no doubt.
I'm so glad we've got what we've got, rather than just trying to basically get the marrow out the bones.
Yeah.
That's me.
Could have been worse. Bits could have been better. They'll probably do another series. And they'll probably do all that sort of thing anyway.
Oh, Ewan and Hayden want one, so
That's fine.
if they do,
Bring them back.
you'll probably hear us ranting about stuff.
Never going to say no to more Vader and Obi-Wan. Keep chucking them on the screen. They're brilliant. Especially if they keep treating Vader that way and just keep dripping just enough in.
Yeah. I'm going to get a Blue Peter badge or something.
You should do for that.
Yeah.
I was thinking that was.
Yeah. Alright. On that note, yeah.
Wrong side, I can literally smack you in the face right there.
Yeah,
Dead.
Yes.
Oh, no,
Let's get in the bind. See you in a bit. I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Piss off.
Now I'm gonna touch your drum set. That's it. Close your eyes. Just let the dirt shower over you.